Marcus
Amazing.
Jones. You are on the 100% podcast. This is a really different introduction to what I'd normally do, but I thought it was interesting and good that we got that conversation in. You
Love
are a
it.
fellow podcast host. You are a fellow marathon runner. You've done way more than what I have as well. You are a coach. Your Booze to Better podcast is around going sober. And like I said at the start, it's going to be a really interesting conversation because we're going to come at it from two different angles. But I do think when we meet in the middle, that there's going to be some same narrative alongside what we're going to say.
Amazing, mate. Thanks for inviting. Yeah, we mean to get this happened, and I'm really appreciative that you having me on. And yeah, this is going to be super excited. I obviously am a marathon runner, and I'm super excited to hear about your experience of it, mate. It's so good.
Well, first and foremost, mate, Booze to Better, the podcast. I think it's important we talk about that first because we've already spoke about it briefly, the
Yeah,
narrative around booze. But what was the reason for you going completely stone cold sober on the booze?
yeah. Great question. So for me, it started like it was almost like a, a stumbling of different events that happened that it wasn't like a lot of people refer to rock bottoms and I suppose there was like many different rock bottoms. So there was one or two rock bottoms that really hit home, and then there was a sort of like a mini, well, there was a massive argument with me and the missus. So I'll start with the first one. Was like I went to Vegas on the back of an all-inclusive cruise I've been on with my family. So an all-inclusive cruise with my family. I was on Strongbow, like any booze. Like on the cruise, it was really good, decent. You know, like sometimes you get shit little beers. On the cruise, it was all like branded, lovely beers and ciders, and so I just made the most of that, knowing that 2 days back, then I was on like a 5 day trip to Vegas with my best mate. And then the 5 day trip to Vegas, I had about probably 12 hours sleep in the whole trip, done loads of booze, loads of drugs. And then I'm like throwing up blood at the end. And I'm like, fuck. Like, but that still didn't make me want to, like, I had like 2 weeks off and then I got back on it every weekend. Then I got a Christmas card, which is I talk about this quite a bit. I got a Christmas card from my nephews, who now one of the youngest nephew is like a mad keen runner, and since I've got him into it, which is like super proud. But they drew a Christmas card of me on like basically slumped over a table with loads of beer cans,
Oh,
and I'm like, fuck, like that's the role model behavior I'm setting. So 2021 comes around. I'd done a lot of work in 20 since lockdown, since like of improving myself. There was a moment in lockdown I looked at myself and I'm like, fuck, look at this guy in the mirror. He's like severely overweight, unhealthy. I couldn't like I couldn't like exercise was getting me out of breath. And I was like, something's got to change. So I used lockdown as, and obviously I couldn't go out and get fucking battered. I still did the odd quiz like everyone else did and
yeah, yeah.
drunk wine. And I was like, yeah, cool. But something seemed to happen then. And then 2021 rolled around and I'm like, I'm going on holiday to Lanzarote in the March. Let's have a reset till March. And then there was one night when I went out with the missus, and my missus got absolutely wasted. Like, and like, so stumbling home, like arguing with me, like stumbling out in the middle of the road, just fucking mad. Like, literally, I was just like, what the fuck? Got up in the morning, had a massive row, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And like, obviously, I didn't mean a relationship. I just like, I can't drink anymore. And literally to the day, I haven't had a touch of drop. So yeah, January the 1st, 2021, I decided for 3 months. And then like I started working with Paul, I believe in November. Like it just, there was just a little couple of little things, and then the momentum built. And then I was like, that one little trigger was like, that was enough for me. Cause I was like, I don't really want to be like that person.
And
Yeah.
interesting, out of all of those things that you listed there,
Yeah, I know.
the the thing that would maybe shock the most people is when you're coughing up the most blood.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was an
yeah.
individual thing. It was actually the situations that involved other people that made you have the biggest realization towards it with your
Yeah,
nephews and your
yeah,
missus. I think there's
yeah.
power in that.
Yeah, there massively is, and until you've just brought it up, I haven't really. Obviously, I thought about the role model side of it with my nephews, but I also think like like with the booze, especially when I was doing it, there was such a selfish with addiction as well. There was quite a selfish element to it, so I was just getting bang on it for the sake of, and I didn't care about. And obviously, my nephews are my life. I you know, I love them to bits, but at the time, I didn't care what I was doing to myself, let alone to other people. Do you know what I mean?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because when you think about like the whole, I look at the two what best known cartoon character dads on the TV, Homer
Yeah,
Simpson, Peter Griffin,
yeah,
all of the habits that they incorporate as a father, like well into their beers, they're both overweight, they're both
yeah,
like slob, like great characters, right? But
yeah. Amazing characters.
slobbery.
Yeah.
They're not exactly the greatest role models for their own kids, and in some ways, and I don't mean this rudely, mate. Obviously, it's just the
Yeah.
scenario. Your nephews were kind of seeing that version of an adult in you.
Oh, mate, without a doubt. And then that, yeah. And like looking back at it now and like thinking of over an overview, is like they were laughing when I was pissed. And it would be like an in joke. So it'd be like I'd go on because I'd gone through a really bad divorce. That's why I started boozing. But it would be like, oh, should we get to the airport? Suit like I'd get to the airport like 3 hours before because that would be my routine of getting pissed up before the flight, or and they would then laugh at that. And but there was like, yeah, like how young kids are so impressionable. I've now obviously the flip side of it is now I started running. Now my nephew is a mad runner. He's 11. He's just smashed like a sub 30 minute like 5K, and I'm like, he's coming for me. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, shh. But that's the beauty. That's what really fucking sets a fire alight now. Is like I have to. I'm almost like I said it on a different podcast. I'm almost like because of what I'm doing, and I'm not even scratched the surface. There are people I'm around now, like yourself, that are doing better than me, but I feel like I'm the beacon of the family now because I'm bettering myself, wanting better from others, but showing them what to do as well.
Rather than telling them what to do. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. Amazing, mate. I wouldn't say anything regards to me doing better than you, mate. You've just like you're on your own journey of smashing the podcast. I mean, the consistency is amazing. What is it you love about the podcasting the most?
Getting to speak to amazing people and like them sharing their story. And I suppose for me, it's just allowing these people to share their story, but also if I can help just one person with their relationship to booze and like pardon the pun, but go booze from booze to better, that I'd have done my job. And like I get to speak to amazing people on that. And it's a bit of like a selfish point of view as well. And I've got to speak to people I'd never ever dreamed I'd have spoke to. And this was just an idea that I posed to Leslie like at the beginning of the year. And I started on the 1st of Jan, and I'm like, phew. And like you said, the consistency, I think I read or listened to Chris Williamson say like most podcasts only last 23 episodes. You're on 150. That's how amazing that is. That's an
Yeah,
amazing stat. Do you know what I mean?
I think I'm in the top. I think it's at least top 5% of like episodes because I don't think many people make it this far. But and I think the important thing to remember for us as podcasters is look like it's not going to change overnight, the downloads, the amount of people that see it, but
Yeah,
actually if you just keep popping the episodes together, they're there forever, aren't they? That's what's
exactly.
amazing about it. There's an archive of episodes that we've done since episode 1 to, well, how many have you done now?
So yeah, I'm think I'm coming up to my 20th now.
Yeah, which is you're going to be in that like top 20% bracket pretty soon.
Yeah,
um and forever, those episodes that you've done with the guests that you've spoken about are going to be in an archive online for people to go and listen to. For me, it's about obviously full self-development, fitness,
Yeah.
speaking to professionals about like their 100% journeys. And obviously originally for me, it was around grassroots sports, which I still hold fond memories of doing. But as I've developed, so's the podcast, right? And it'll
Yeah.
be the same for you as well, mate. I'm sure there'll be some new niches that you do. There'll be little things that you add on. You'll notice from your first video to when you do your 100th video, it'll be completely different. I'm sure from your first post on your podcast now, it's completely different, even after
Mate.
20 episodes. And I think that's
Yeah.
what's amazing about doing it. And like you say, on a selfish note, when I speak to people like Paul, when I speak to
Yeah.
people like Dax Moy, Paul Nichols, the
Mate, that was
most
incredible.
most successful jump trainer in the UK, you're sitting there and you're being like, yeah, I'm doing this so people can listen to this, but also on the flip side, it's very personal, isn't it? You're asking questions
Mate,
that are relevant to you as well.
didn't you have Fabrice Mwamba on as well?
No, that weren't me. That must have been Rob
Oh, no,
Blackburn,
no.
maybe. Yeah, I had Frank
uh,
Nouble, Frank
That's
Nouble.
it. Sorry,
Yeah,
Frank
yeah,
Nublet.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't he he was West Ham, wasn't he?
West Ham, yeah, Chelsea,
So
Ipswich, yeah, yeah. So
do you know what I
pretty
mean?
cool.
Like he's played for your club.
Yeah, I've
That for
had,
me was pretty good.
yeah. I had Chelsea's first ever black player on as well, Paul Canoville, which was an amazing episode to record. Obviously, hearing the story about breaking into the Chelsea team as a young lad when obviously English football was notoriously racist and
Yeah,
Chelsea had their own racist fans and obviously and which is horrendous. But to hear his story about how he broke through and now obviously he has his own suite at Stamford Bridge, the Paul Canoville Foundation and all those kind of things. You're like, wow, what a journey. You
yeah,
think about the 100% message, that's somebody that's completely done the full thing. In
yeah.
terms of
Amazing.
going boost free, mate, just going back to that conversation, what can
Yeah,
people do to make it easy for them?
I think massively environment as well. Like for me, the environment is key. Like I just actually I did a quick live before I jumped on after my run, and I'm also there's a couple of things. Don't be alone. Ask for help is the main thing. Like to even you don't have to have a problem to go sober. I think that's the massive key as well because there's a lot of people in our network who haven't got an issue with it and can give or take it, but choose to like even yourself, like choose to not do it on a reg, but you know, 1 or 2, 3 times a year when they know that they don't have any like arrangements after it. So I think the most important thing is like also don't hang about in the pub or don't. It's temptations, isn't it? Like if you're telling your customers, you wouldn't tell them to hang out in Greg's and Krispy Kreme. So the
Yeah.
same for me is like I wouldn't go to a pub. Learn to how to say no. So don't go to a pub. Learn how to say no, and also is like self care is massive. Like self care and environment are the other two things for me. Self care is like moving your body. Like for you, I suppose on your thing is I'm not a massive lift. I've only just started literally last week lifting weights because I feel that can help my running.
1 million
But
percent it will help your
yeah,
running,
yeah,
mate.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but like moving, like I didn't until I went sober. I didn't walk. Like I met my girlfriend. She's like, "Do you want to go for a walk?" And I'm like, "Walking? What's that?" Do you know what I mean? As in terms of like, I'd only walk to the bar. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's definitely movement. It's self care. Like whether that be journaling, obviously, which we're massively passionate about. Whether that be massages. I have massages now quite regularly because I believe in recovery and all that good stuff. But like if you're poisoning your body, which is alcohol is a poison, then and also you have to give yourself time because I think how long when did you start drinking, mate? Age.
Off the record,
Yeah.
I probably gave my first beer on a family holiday at 13, 14.
Yeah. And how old are you now?
31.
Yeah, so a good 17 years. This is what I'd say to people when they come to me is like, don't expect that it's going to be easy straight away. the same probably with you with weight loss. You know, if someone
Oh,
says to
mate.
you, I've been binge eating for 5 years, or haven't eaten right for 5 years, you're going to say, well, this isn't, you're not going to lose 5 stone overnight. But so it's a gradual process, but you can't, in my opinion, you can't just give it 30 days and expect a change in your thoughts, feelings, behaviors, because it has to be a solid stint to start reaping the benefits.
In terms of regular drinking, would there be an argument to say that if you are a regular drinker, let's say every weekend, right? It's Friday and Saturday nights. If you was to give it up for 30 days though, you'd feel an absolute shift in your energy.
Yeah, I think like the main thing for me is sleep. So
Yeah.
you'll start sleeping better, because even, and this is, maybe I'll get a lot of shit for that, but even drinking moderation, you'll see, like, I've had a client once had 1 glass of red wine, and his whoop and his recovery was dog shit the next day.
I'm telling you, mate, that out of all of the things that you could list, and I know that it's linked to 7
Seven
different
comes,
types of
yeah,
cancer, and
shrinks
but
your brain.
there are also like other things in life that can cause incredibly bad health. And I'm not being an advocate for alcohol here. I'm just saying that that's like quite an extreme argument, and I get why people would do that, especially if they are addicted. Let's just say, like, it's a good
Yeah.
way of looking at it. Like, think of all the really fucking shit things that alcohol does to you. But for me personally, I am useless. And I've said this on the podcast before. Absolutely fucking useless if I'm not slept well. If I'm
Yeah.
not well slept and I'm not recovering well from my sessions, from my runs, from work, whatever it may be, I'll be miserable. I'll be less tolerant, which is not doesn't fit into my narrative anymore. I am a patient person. I can deal with people even when they're not living up to my expectations. And when I'm sleepy, all of those things go out the window, mate. And that's why, for me, alcohol is so far down on my priority list that it only gets touched on a very, very rare occasion now.
Yeah, I think productivity for me, you've hit the nail on the head, was a massive like win. Like, a lot, especially people will go on about how much time you need, like how much time they don't have, and time's a big excuse for many of people. The amount of time I've gained back, like, and I think that's what a lot of people say is, you're not actually giving up something, you're gaining a lot fucking more. So yeah, I've gained loads of sleep, like I cannot tell you the shift in my life since giving it up. And that's, I'm not being here like being a preacher and saying I didn't have good, because do you know what, for however long I've had some wicked times with alcohol, but at the time I didn't know any different. Now
Mm.
I know different, and that's just also with the circles we mix with now. Now I know different, and I choose to make better decisions. And my decision making, well, any decision making when you're intoxicated is shite, whether that be a girl, like you got your beer goggles on, whether that be a girl, whether that be, for me, it was putting myself in stupid situations with drug taking and shit like that. Do you know what I mean? So it's all of that. And I would do stupid. I would like run into. There was this time I ran into a wall and like really done my, like. Basically, I was supposed to go to a gig the next day and I had to cancel that because, letting people down as well, like all of that crazy shit. But yeah,
Would you have said you weren't an alcoholic by name? You just
no,
an incredibly an a regular social drinker.
yeah. So that's it. Like, it's called I'd say a grey area drinker, but it's interesting because I've had this since the thought since going sober. A lot of people have asked me, "Oh, what was your?" So the reason I got the reason my drinking and drug taking. I never touched an illegal drug till I was 31.
Oh wow.
But booze is a drug, right? So, but it's legal. But the thing is, I hadn't done any of that till I was 31. But the thing that changed that was my ex-wife just left me on Pancake Day in 2016, just walked out and said, I can't do this anymore. I don't want babies. And that was like a kick in the balls. And then my life just crumbled. But instead of like, I've never dealt with grief before. So I decided to be like, right, okay, what's the best way is just escape life. And that's what I did for 5 years. But I would say that was Thursday to pretty much Thursday to Saturday, most weeks for that long. However, before that, I would say in my like childhood, I didn't drink when I was 12, but like when I sort of growing up, I would say a lot of the reasons I drunk was to be like that class clown, to be like acting up, to be that funny person, to be like the center of attention, that people pleasing thing. So like I would say like my relationship's never been great with it because I always just drunk to get pissed.
It's weird, isn't it? Because even if I look back at my early social drinking and associated with my football team, where
Yeah.
I say the infamous story of why I started my own weight loss journey was because I didn't pick myself for a cup final when I was manager. But all of those nights out, you look back at it, and I was obviously a big lad,
Yeah.
6'1". I could handle my drink, and I could
Yeah.
drink a pint really fucking fast as well. It was like one of my party tricks, so to speak.
Yeah.
When
Yeah. Yeah.
you're 18, 19, 20, 21, even up to, like, I don't know, 5 years ago, let's say 26,
Yeah.
that was like all of my mates, like social mates, good friends, football teammates would think that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Herds is the best drinker in the group. Harry's the best drinker in the group, and you'd almost wear that with a bit of a like guard, like
Badge
a
of honor.
bit of
Yeah.
a bit of a chip on your shoulder. Now, I think of that and I'm like, what fucking like not like what a weird thing to have some pride about, you know? I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know if you remember when they did the neck nominations
Yes.
on Facebook.
Neck
And I like
nominate. Yeah.
yeah. And that was the thing that went round. And I did my thing. I put like cough medicine in it and shit like that. And you're like, what the fucking hell are you doing, bro? And then but then on the comments of that video, you're like, that's how you down a pint properly, blah blah blah. And you get, I remember the feeling. I remember watching all the comments come in, the likes and stuff come in.
Yeah.
Amazing, blah blah blah. You're like, hey, I've fucking done it. I remember I got home from work that night. I poured that thing, the drink. I put like vodka, blah blah blah. It went in there and I banged it. I remember sitting downstairs in the lounge. So that we had a dining room and a lounge downstairs. I drank the drink, posted it. I sat in the lounge. It was like 10:30 at night. I was like, I've got to get up for work at 6 the next morning. I remember sitting there thinking, well, that one pint's made me fucking pissed. I probably
Yeah.
thought I had the best night's sleep ever, but you just look back at little things like that. Look, of course, there's naivety, there's inexperience, but then there's that like weird social pressure that comes along with drinking, that you'd get tagged in a post on Facebook, you had to make the worst drink you possibly could, and that was what you did. And it's just strange when you think about it. Like human behavior in general is quite strange, right?
Yeah. To understand that as well, like it's weird because still to this day, like, and I've got the video on my phone. So like, and this was like 30, however old I was at the time. So there's a video of me, and I've got it on my Instagram at some point. There's a video of me standing drunk in a kebab shop, swaying, eyes closed, just swaying. I can't remember how I got home that night. My friend had to take me back to my mum and dad's, and to think that the message I got in the morning was what a hero. That was only like 3 or 4, like what, 5 years ago. Like to
Yeah.
think I'm a hero like that, and I'm like, fuck. Like, is that really what I'm like known for? Is just like being a fucking lightweight and like, do you know what I mean? Like, that's just like anything could have happened that night, like literally anything. I wasn't in control of, and that's the thing. I never was. I think I was massively drinking to forget my so-called troubles, because which they were, I was going through a divorce, but what was that doing to me? That was just making me worse, unfortunately.
Yeah, and of course we're not far away with our habits with it now because, like I say, I am quite fortunate that, for example, I went to Lisbon in March, and that was for my friend Lewis's stag do. A great time. I drank on the Friday and Saturday nights, and I can wake up on a Sunday and go done, and then I don't need to think about it. I don't need to worry about it. Even if I play like socially with the football team now, I go to the pub and I'll be one of maybe two of 20 that've got a Diet Coke or 0% beer, and nobody says anything as well. Which is, I think people have got used to the fact that Harry just isn't that asked about booze now. They're all going to Albufeira in a month's time for their end of season do, and there's just no point me going. Like you say, environment, like that's not another situation for me now. That, as much as I love the boys, if any of them are listening, and I love their company, that's an environment that, as much as I'd love to say I'd go there and not drink, they're all going to be absolutely wasted. It's not somewhere I want to be on the Albufeira strip, like glass
Yeah,
everywhere.
been
Yeah, yeah,
there.
yeah. Like, great for those boys, but just doesn't fit in with my plans now. Like, I've prioritized other things. I'm doing Paul Mort's coaching academy in a couple of weeks'
Amazing.
time. I'm going to our juniors meditation retreat in June, and
Love that.
these all cost money, and I've had to
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Which one is Harry going to be thankful for in 2 months' time? Is it 600, £700 on a 2 day bender in Portugal, or is it going to be improving myself
Self
and my
development.
health? And I think the answer for me there is always the improving myself and my health.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I would dread to think how much money and how many, and I think this is the key thing, isn't it, for us being budding entrepreneurs, podcasters. This takes time, right? All this shit takes time. If I've lost, if I lost, and I've said this in a different podcast, but and it was more than it. If I lost a day a week, a day um every week for 52 weeks, that's nearly 2 months I've lost in the year. It was more than that for me because I'd lose. I wasn't good for Monday, probably Tuesday. I was just starting to get better Wednesday, and then I'd be at it again Thursday.
Mm.
It'd be any excuse. So, you know, I don't know, Europa League, like whoever won Europa League, or
Probably Arsenal, mate.
yeah, mate, it probably was at the time. Like, or I'd be going to Arsenal, watching them in Europa League because, like, my mate had 4 season tickets. I was like, yeah, cool, let's go. That was when they were in the Champions League. They got dicked by like PSG or Dortmund 5-0, or whoever they got beat by at the time. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's just another excuse to go to London to get on the piss. And then I'd be going to the casino afterwards. So I waste more money, and it's just that knock on effect. And
Yeah.
I haven't got time or I haven't got the money to do that now.
I think it's really interesting. You mentioned that you're only just, oh, sorry, you started taking drugs socially quite late in your life.
Yeah.
What was the caveat for that? Just social pressure?
I'd say like it's crept in when just at the end of my marriage. So that was the first time I tried it. We had like a house party around our house, and when I was like, I had a couple of people around, and they had some, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll give it a try. And then literally massively, yeah, the network I was with at the time were regular drug takers, and I was just like, okay, cool. I slipped into that, and I was like, right, okay. It just seemed to go hand in hand at the time, and yeah, I just didn't know. I didn't know any different, so I just kept doing it. And obviously, it's expensive. It's just as soul destroying for my mental health. Like like there's nothing like, yeah, like killed my mental health, to be honest. And I had to have about 3 grand worth of gum reconstruction as well,
Oh
which
shit!
is always nice. Yeah. And
Wow.
yeah, which is basically, that bit there at the bottom of your gun attached, that was like hanging off. Yeah, yeah. Which is not nice. Like, yeah.
Would you have said that you were like? I think it's important to acknowledge these. Would you have said you were depressed then?
Oh, mate, I was in the bits. There was times when, oh yeah, there was basically times I relied on going out, obviously, because that's all I knew and that's what I wanted to. But there were times when, and again, this is quite dark. So for anyone listening, if they want to turn off at this time, but like, basically, I walked home from I was working on a Saturday and I walked home back to the car park, and people had let me down that night. So I got nowhere else. Like, I got nothing to do that night on a Saturday night. And obviously Saturday night for me was like my main night of going out, like at that time. And I'd obviously been boozing quite a bit, and everything got on top of me. And for some reason, mate, I just turned off my phone, and I was just drove somewhere. I can't even remember where. It's all a bit of a all a bit of a like fuck. But I don't know I don't know what I was expecting, and I don't know what would have happened. But it's almost like a big cry of help for me. But I was like, I can't. Can I do this? And then, yeah, the other time was like I had like a 6 month relationship, and I split up with her. But that was the first time I had the bollocks to split up with anyone. And I remember driving, but these are like two incidents. I remember driving back from there, crying my eyes out, and it's all like fucking. I've never told this story before, but like it's all like windy roads, and I was just like messaging my therapist at the time and messaging my best mate. And I was just like, I don't know if I can do this. Do you know what I mean? And I was just like, fuck, that was like bleak, and I just like, and I didn't realize. I thought this little elixir bottle of beer or whatever I was drinking at the time was my savior, but it was actually making me even worse, you know?
Yeah, it was part of the mix to create that feeling, I assume.
Yeah, the instant gratification that it gave me, that 15-minute dopamine hit. And yeah, and that's all I was chasing every time. And I thought that I've never been like super confident with women. And I think that's a lot of the things when I'm growing up. I used that as like, oh, I'm not just women. I've never been confident as a massively confident person, but I used booze as that sort of false confidence and like, yeah,
Dutch courage, mate.
yeah,
The old adage. Yeah,
yeah,
100%, mate. Let's move it forward to the habits that now support you being from booze to better and
yes, mate.
feeling a new 100% self. We've spoke about running and the impact of what it's had on one of your nephews, which is insane. That of course Lighthouse over being a tugboat, and
Yeah,
that's a great example of it. He once drew a photo of you, or drew an image of you slumped down with tins of beer in front of you, and now he's copying his uncle and his running, which is amazing. But for you, mate, what's the addiction to running, or is there an addiction to running, and
yeah.
why do you love it so much?
I think there is a kind of addiction to running. The reason I love it so much is I think a lot of the time at the start is like, I think there was a image like 20, I think it's September 2020. I decided to go on my first run, I think. And I think that at the time it was like a mile, and I did like 14 minutes, and I was happy with that. And I'm like, wow, like I've halved that now. And I think at the time it was that gradual, like I saw like the gradual improvement of like, oh, he's that 5K's quicker, that 5K's quicker, that five. And then I'm like, what if I push my body? What if I push my body? And then I was like, and then my one of my best friends, he decided, unfortunately, he lost his mum, and he started fundraising for Mind. So he ran a marathon, and I was driving to the marathon with him. That the first marathon, he got in for Mind, and I was on the phone to my ex-girlfriend at the time, and he's like, because I was in the buzz of this marathon, I'd supported him loads, and I said to her at the time, I'm gonna run a marathon one day, and she laughed. Now that is fine. Like, obviously, I don't resent that. I'm like, oh, that's probably how she was struggling with life at the time, etc. That's what I can see now. But at the time, that sort of riled me, because that's someone who I wanted support from didn't like back me. And then I went to the marathon twice with him, and I'm like, fuck, this atmosphere is incredible. I'm gonna do this one day. And then I've put in a couple of ballots, and then I was like, I always remember where I was. I was down at my parents' caravan, and I checked, and I got the ballot through, and it's like, you've got in, and I was like, jeez, not many people get in through the ballot, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And it, like, just the training, but sorry, I know I've gone off topic, but the training and just being able to run, just helps my mental health, something else. Like, the it's the beauty of being out there, having something to train for. I did the Goggins challenge as well, and that was just like, wow. Like, for me, doing these challenges, just, you know it cements how far you've come. Like, for like, you've done an ultra for that, which it's that constant, like, knowing I have to train for this, knowing I have to rest, I have to eat well, I have to do these things, and it's having that structure of that's really helped me, just not just with like my mental health, and not just with my fitness, but with everything.
Yeah.
And it's just been a massive part. And then obviously I've ran 2 Londons. I've walked a marathon as well with my girlfriend. Now we walked along Norfolk coast, and then I've just finished Norfolk one. Yeah, and it's I don't think I'm going to stop soon, but what I am going to, I've got a challenge at the end of May, where it's like a 24-hour endurance challenge. But that's why I started. I mean, it's probably a bit late now, but I've started lifting weights, because I have to do some weighted stuff there as well. So, mate, yeah, that's so. Yeah, sorry, I know I've completely gone off track, but yeah, it's helped with my mental health. It's helped with my physical health. Like, I don't feel like, I thought when these people laughed at me, it's almost like, at the time, it was almost to like prove people wrong, and there is still an element of that. It's like, fuck you kind of thing, but it's almost like, uh, proving to myself now that I have the ability to run. I was doubting the marathon I've just done, but I'm now like, well, I definitely can run marathons.
Who do you do it for, mate? Do you do it for the people that doubted you, or do you do it for you?
It's a good question, mate. Like, at the time, at the first marathon, I'd say I definitely did it to prove people wrong.
Yeah, go on.
Now, mate, like, now I don't think there's anyone else to prove. Like, I can do hard shit. Do I do enough hard shit? Probably not. Can I do enough hard shit? I'm definitely. I think that's the thing, isn't it? Knowing I'm capable. It sounds like I sound like a massive, like, yeah. I don't know. I suppose for me at the time, it was definitely proving people wrong. But now I'm like,
Subconsciously, though,
yeah,
subconsciously, whether you liked it or not, you were proving yourself wrong too.
yeah,
Because I'm sure at the start of that first marathon you did, there was that doubt. And I've got the analogy of the cellophane, the cling film ceiling, is that you have that layer of doubt above you, and then you train towards it, which obviously you did for your marathon, and I did for my ultra. You train, you can then take a step up your ladder, and then you can pop your head through that limiting belief. And then there's the next one, which is going to be probably around lifting weights for you, I imagine.
yeah,
But
yeah,
you're going to put the work in, and then you're going to train for it. You're going to eat well for it. You'll sleep well for it. You're not going to obviously drink any booze, which is going to affect your training as well. And then you'll do the thing, and then pops open another layer of that limiting belief that you have. And I think everybody's got that capability to do that, whether it be for a 5K. Oh, well, fuck the 5K. Your first mile. When people say, "Oh, I don't like," the thing that people say to me most regular is,
Yeah.
"That's amazing. I don't even think I could run a mile." That
Yeah.
language in itself is something to prove wrong, in if you ask me. But I think
Uh,
what's really important to reiterate to everybody is that we've had a world-class coach that have unlocked all of these new beliefs, feelings, thoughts, habits, as well as doing the work ourselves. We
yeah.
can't take that away from ourselves. And secondly, if you watch TV and you were to live, let's just go with the day to day, 9 to 5, regular work life balance, alcohol is a huge part of it. It's a
Yeah.
huge part of it. And the way that we think now, yourself and I, Marcus, around how we can avoid, well, you totally, and me for 90%, 95% of my year, is really unusual for the the life we live in right now. And I think that's really important to remember. But the point that I think both of
100%.
us are trying to make is that we've both had those limiting beliefs on the hard shit that we can do, and we've done hard shit, which has given ourselves the evidence, and everybody has a choice to be able to do that or not.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. And back to back what you just said as well is it's like I get a lot is like I've never been a runner. Do you think I was a runner to start with? I think that's key to add as well. It's like the 100% community uh, are not the 100% community without belief. And belief doesn't come from sitting on your ass. It comes from doing the actual thing. So I think your 100% community that you've built up is built on the first step. Really, the first
Yeah,
step is running a
and
kilometer or yeah,
trying. Fuck
yeah.
me, try, like having the. I think
That's
when
half a
people
battle.
reach out to sign up to whatever your program, my program, Paul Mort's program,
Yeah,
the first step of that is that they've taken a decision to do something for them, and that may be the first time that they've done something from even I don't even care. Like I use the word be selfish sometimes.
yeah,
If this is going to benefit you, and then a knock on effect of it benefiting your kids or your partner or your parents or your colleagues at work, then that's paying itself back tenfold. And I've seen some of the clients I've worked with now being the beacons for other people, and they're like now promoting, I don't know, high protein diet at work, or they're the ones that are doing the extra activities with the parents at school because they want to go and do extra exercise, or they're the ones that are now bringing them along to like my exercise class on a Thursday night in Stokes upon Hamden, and you're like, okay, from the top of the pyramid, essentially, if you look at who I've worked with, like people like Dax Moy, Paul Mort, they've had a
yeah,
knock on effect on me, which has then spread the message to the people that I've worked with. And now the people that I've worked with, even if it's just one little sentence that they say that they've remembered that I've said, that
yeah,
helps somebody else, it's quite an amazing thing. But like I said, it is also important we remember how small of a percentage that is, and there's still a fucking massive pool of people that need that belief, they need that help, they need that knowledge on their how to look after their physical and mental well-being.
yeah, massively. And I think the mental side of it is the key. You and I both know that physical mental health needs physical support, and I think the mental side for me was the biggest struggle. So I think even like today, I, and the marathon I've just trained for, training didn't go to plan. But do you know what? Like it's showing up. I still showed up, and I think that's a lot. A lot of the issues now is like it's quite easy to order a takeaway from your phone. It's quite easy to sit and binge Netflix, but it's but it's not that easy to go out and be humbled by the pavement, so to speak, or whatever. But it's much more rewarding. That's how I'd say it.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I think I don't know about you, but I don't run with music anymore.
So yeah, I run with podcasts or
Okay.
nothing at all.
Yeah, yeah. So I've just ditched the headphones completely with my running, and it's something that I've probably done since I basically I trained for the ultra with my headphones and would listen to music when it started getting tough.
Yeah, yeah,
And then because I was training in all sorts of terrain, I'm a sweaty bastard, so they got salty.
yeah.
They just fucked my AirPods fucked up.
Yeah.
And since then, I was like, do you know what? I've heard so many people say about it's more you're more present when you don't listen to things. You listen to your body more. You tune into what's hurting, how you're running, what you're thinking about. I can honestly say that since I've started running without headphones, that I almost deal with the negative things that might be going on within my life on that week or that day, or the little bit of stress that may rear its head at a later point if you're distracted by music or distracted by listening to whatever podcast it may be. Boost to Better, 100% podcast, Modern Wisdom, Chris Williamson.
Yeah.
You're always distracted, and I've found that doing it completely just me versus me, my brain, I deal with the negative shit then. And afterwards, I feel even lighter than I would do with headphones, if that makes sense. You always feel good anyway, right? After a run, you get that dopamine hit, don't you? You get the
Yeah.
runner's high. And I've found that running completely present is just a game changer. And I think if you're listening to this and you're saying, I couldn't do that because the music gets me through, I think that's an even more of a reason to just try it.
Yeah, wow, that's mega. I've run both Londons with no headphones because it's
Oh,
there's no point.
you don't need
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
man.
If
You're
you if
and
yeah,
obviously like you're aware. You're just I was distracted for 21 miles until I got the fucking worst cramp in the whole world, and then I felt every bit of that
yeah,
last
yeah,
5 miles. But the honestly, I've been trying to decide whether it is the greatest experience of my life, and I think it is, to be honest.
yeah. It, it it I can't describe the emotions I felt throughout both Londons. I cried every other mile. Like I just think the support, the goodwill of people is just fucking, and the stories, man. You walking around, you're seeing like for you, mum, or yeah,
Oh no,
whatever, mate. Like yeah, and I would, I've just run a marathon that hadn't barely any spectators, and this is the thing is like the expectation was I didn't have no expectations, and it was my best run I've ever done in terms of like how I felt. But it doesn't, nothing can compare to London. I don't, you can't, I can't until you've done it like you have, Harry. Like I can't, you can't explain the buzz you
no.
get and the feelings you get. It's
Mel,
inexplainable. Yeah.
yeah, it is inexplainable. It's so hard to people you people you don't even know are your biggest fans on the day, and that's like honestly, yeah, it's just incredible. And then you every 3 miles or 2 miles, you're seeing something that just takes your breath away, the sights, and then oh mate, yeah, you could just keep
Yeah.
going on about it over and over again,
Yeah.
couldn't you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. There's like steel drums, there's Rundem Crew, there's whatever, yeah, the crowd. Then you come through Tower Bridge, and then all the drums start. Oh man, like
that
literally. Yeah,
Tower Bridge was like a scintillating neck hairs
yeah,
up feeling. You could, but if you could bottle that feeling I felt when I turned around the corner, and then you see it in the distance, the pale blue towers, and you
yeah,
see all of those people on the side. That's good enough anyway. But then when you run across it, if you could bottle that feeling up and sell it, you'd make fucking millions.
yeah, yeah. And then then you hit the embankment right at the end, and there's just fucking the crowds along embankment. Just yeah, I get like goosebumps even talking about it, and like to know that they've all got your back and they just willing you on, and just like the people are just yeah, it's just fucking incredible.
I
And
was
I
in a
think
I was in
yeah,
a
go on.
sorry, I was just I was in a big hole, big
Yeah,
hole in
well,
embankment on along that
yeah,
embankment bit at the end. I was in shit street. I'll tell you that
mate.
much.
I remember stopping and talking to do you know Jake Quickerdon, like the
Oh yeah,
guy?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I stopped to talk to him and shook his hand and said how like amazing, like you know, because his brother had bone cancer. But yeah, like just random people. You just like what? But like I suppose training back to everything you just had said was like that buzz of running, that runner's high, that everything you get is replacing what I got probably from the booze and drugs,
Mate, yeah.
and some. Do you know what I mean?
Love it. I think that's a great place to go to the last two questions of today's podcast with you, Marcus. First question, well, it's not really a surprise. If we go 3-year plan for you, what's next on the agenda for Marcus Jones and the podcast?
Yeah. So is to build the podcast, carry on with the consistency with the podcast. Keep that. I want to do a couple of live events with my Boost to Better community, and carry on building that up. So they're the two main focuses I have on. Then you know, getting some cool speakers in, and like just carry on building that as a brand as well.
Perfect, mate. And the final question of today's podcast, tradition, what is the greatest bit of advice you've ever been given?
I've been thinking about this all day, and I suppose I don't know if this is much of advice, but like my dad said to me ages ago, and this is like just he said to me really like when I was young, he's like, just remember, son, when you get older, you're gonna count on one hand the friends you have around you. And at the time, I was like, that's bullshit because I've got loads of friends. And then when I went sober, he was fucking right. And I was like, yeah, he's right. So that's probably one bit of advice he said. And like, but also like, I suppose Paul's just give us no end of advice. But I think the main thing for me with Paul is like, action is the only answer. You know, like I think for me, that embodies everything that I've done and embodies everything I've been through. You know, taking action on my life. You know, recently and carrying on going forward. I think that's one of so them two for me are the biggest things, mate.
Yeah, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. One thing I want to end and say, mate, is I think me and you are quite similar sometimes in the sense that we don't do it on purpose, but sometimes put ourselves and
Yeah,
our
mate.
accomplishments down in comparison to other people, mate. I just want to say, I think it's amazing what you do. Your podcast is going to go from strength to strength. I know that. I know you're going to take on this endurance event and smash that as well. So just keep doing what you're doing, bro. And remember when, like, I don't hope you don't mind me saying this on the pod, so I'm guilty of it too.
No, mate.
But
Yeah.
when you're in the presence of people you admire, that's because that you know that it's inside you as well, mate. So keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, mate, I'm honored for that, and yeah, same goes for you, mate. I massively self doubt's still something I'm dealing with daily, but you know, again, it's through that support and through that uh, confidence and through the belief that I can do it and I suppose evidence as well. So yeah, mate, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you inviting me on. It's
You're welcome. Where can people come
mega.
and find you if they want to come see you, mate?
Yeah, so mainly on my Insta is Marcus Jones Coaching.
Perfect.
Obviously on Spotify and Apple is Boost to Better Podcast, and I've got a Boost to Better community on Facebook as well. But yeah, they're the three main things.
Love it, mate. We'll tag your show and we'll tag your Instagram in the episode description. This
Oh,
has
you're a
been
legend.
another episode of the 100% podcast. Me, your host, Harry Purdy. Today's guest, Marcus Jones. You'll catch us with a new episode every Friday. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please go over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and drop a 5-star review. And if you are watching on YouTube, look, I'm seeing you right now. You can click the like and subscribe button below. It will do me a massive, massive favor. Speak to you very, very soon. Take care.